Hey, thanks for clicking another video. This is going to be a really exciting one for me. We're finally going to start the mounting of my kicker onto my pontoon. And if you saw the last video, this 9.9 Johnson, I have converted from basically a tiller motor to a remote controls motor. It's not completely hooked up yet, but I've got all of the main components on, and it's ready to basically be mounted. So now the next step is to actually start with the kicker mount. That's basically what she looks like. So this plate here will go underneath and bolt from the inside, and also bolt into the side plate. Then once that's mounted on, this bolts onto there, and then your kicker can mount onto that plate. I've left the old Johnson cables on the boat. I've already replaced the ones on the big motor, and so these are the old ones. I'm running some lubrication through so that they work well again, and we are going to use those controls. So we're going to use those cables, and this control I got from eBay, and I'm going to mount this up at the helm somewhere, so we'll be able to control this motor. Other than start and stop, I'll be able to control it, shift and throttle from the helm. So can't wait. All right, you can see right off the bat that this spacer for the fence is going to be in the way. When we try to slide this on, we immediately hit that. So that will have to be relocated, maybe to the corner, or maybe just eliminated altogether, but it's got to come out. Now we got her. Okay, the next step is to get this as in center of the tune as you can. And that looks about right where it is. Then I'm gonna get a magic marker, Sharpie, trace a hole, and then we're gonna drill those out. Drilling a 3/8 hole through each one. These are toggle bolts that come with the kit. So they're going to insert, and then this will flip down on the back side of this aluminum plate, and then we'll run a nut down to hold the bracket on. Just put them in from the back side, it's fine. Three-eighths nylon locking nut. 3/8 nylon locking nut. I think we go secure it from the top side. Okay, going very well so far. It has gone very easy. Everything's gone well. The top bolts went in good. There was one you could probably see on the video that I think started going into maybe this cross member here, so I just switched it to the other hole, and it is all secure. It is very secure. So that is our bottom mounting plate. All right, my next order of business is to get the height correct on this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from the mounting bracket on the kicker motor down to where I'm going to want the water line. And then I'm going to make sure that the distance from the top of the mounting bracket here is equal to about where the water line is going to hit on the pontoon, which is clearly evident by some of the staining on the tune. So and then I'm going to make sure that I can still tilt the motor completely out of the water when not in use. You want to make sure that the water inlet has sufficient submersion. So it looks like it's going to have to be a little bit higher than I originally wanted it to, because it says in the instructions that you need 3 holes of engagement. So I can only put it down so low. So I'm going to have to put it on probably its lowest setting. I think it's still going to be fine to get the motor in the water and out of the water. So we'll go ahead and bolt that up and see how it goes with the motor. I could see a big problem right off the bat. There's no way I'm going to be able to tilt this with my bracket here. Boo, boo, boo. That's not good. Okay. We're here several frustrating days later. I will tell you that I really don't any longer recommend, at least for my application, the mount that I purchased for this. It would have been much easier and cheaper to have something fabricated locally or do it myself, and I'll kind of show you why. So where we left off was the front, where the stop switch is now mounted. This is also going to be the turning bracket, was hitting the top of the mount when it was swiveling, especially when it was tilting. So I could not tilt the motor up whatsoever without it hitting. Okay, and as you can see, I have now fixed that, but it is after many hours of heartbreak and research and honestly some courage that I didn't think I had to start cutting into this mounting piece. I contacted the company, asked them what their thoughts were. They weren't a whole ton of help, and not bad mouthing them or anything. They made the mount for what it was. It's just my application with a short shift or a short shaft motor. It needed to be mounted a little bit lower to get the foot into the water, and just wasn't working for this, especially with the cables. So the throttle cable is going to be mounted here, and the shift cable is going to be mounted here, and you know, those poke out a little bit, and so those were also hitting on the swiveling and such. So anyways, long story short, bottom line is I had to remove this portion again, use my Sawzall and tediously cut out a pretty big chunk of this forward plate, and then I sanded it smooth again, as smooth as I could get it, with a wire wheel and a file, and then I went ahead and painted it with some rust converter, because this is steel, and after just a few days of the bare metal, it had already started rusting. So I think I've now got it to the point where it will tilt up. For storage purposes, it can't really swivel back and forth still when it's tilted up, but I can show you here. If I raise the motor, it clears everything tilted to this side, but I cannot still, you know, swivel the motor while it's tilted. So it's going to be in this position when it's stored up, and then to get some of the relief of the weight off of the back end, I decided I'm going to use my ski bar and just put a strap around it, and when I go tight with that strap, it lifts this up just enough to give a little bit of tension relief off that rear bracket. So when I'm running around with the main motor hitting waves, I'm not putting too much stress on that back end. So I think I'm at the point now where I can continue with what I was doing. So we'll maybe edit this down a little bit, but start back where I was. Okay, now comes the installation of the shifting hardware. So in the kit comes with this, which they call a casing guide. It comes with this pin here that has a little hole in it, a knurled edge, a little spring, and this little pin. And that's what seems like is needed. So the spring goes on the pin goes through the hole, and then this goes through that hole. Got that knocked basically halfway, poking out on both sides about equal distance. Okay, that's the way that should be. The next item we're going to need is this pin for the other side, and then I'm going to need a small cotter pin, which maybe it originally came with the kit, but I don't have it, so I'm going to go grab a small cotter pin from my own supply. Okay, at this point I can use either one of the cables that I have back here, because both of them are running to the same place up front. So I'm just gonna take one here, and I'm gonna take so this was our little detent clip. Scooch that off to the side. Before I even put that in, this is going to slip. Oh. That way. It's going to slip through the backside there. That pin is going to hold that in. Got a little baby cotter pin. Goes through. I'm not going to wrap the cotter pin yet. I'm just going to use it to hold it in the spot right now. Okay, and then this is going to slip in there. Okay, this is going to slip into the little holder, and our detent clip goes back over to hold it in. And then I'm going to extend the cable until, that's the part you need to see here. So remember that little pin that went through there? There's a reason, because that's the shape of the little slot on the shift lever. So there, it's going to go through, and then I'm going to twist it, half a twist, and now that's locked on. So that needs to be maybe tightened a little bit. I might need to pull that off and bend it just so that it's doesn't tend to push up so much on that, but that is essentially locked in now. So now reverse and neutral and forward. That should all be within our control once we hook up the other end of it. Okay, and then this is our throttle cable. And the throttle cable is going to be assembled like this. So this is our holder for the trunnion here. It snaps in like that. Extend that just a little bit. Okay, and then this retaining clip goes this way. Ba-bum. Okay. This is going to get inserted sideways, because if you see here, it's got these little plastic pop-outs, and they need to go through the little cutouts on the motor. So this is going to get inserted sideways. There we go. Okay. And then turned so that it locks in. Be really careful. I don't want to knurl the plastic or anything. There we go. That's a lot easier. Boom. Okay. So that's turned up. That little clip right here locks into that tab on the top. So we are now in good shape there. And what does that look like on the inside? So there's our little throttle. Cable end is going to go there. Okay. a lot easier with two hands. Okay, so now that's slipped on there, and I think we've just got a detent clip there, or some sort of retaining clip there. Let me go find out. So I am in fact missing the retaining clip for this portion, and it's actually, I don't think it's supposed to come in the kit. It actually should come with a new set of cables, from what I understand now, after doing a little Google search. But my new OMC cables that I bought for the main motor didn't come with them, so they are available, let's see if we can see here, pretty readily, just on eBay and other sites. So that's what I need right there. It goes, the little open holes fit over these on both sides, and then clip the throttle cable to, and just retain it on top of this little nub on the carburetor body. So I'm just going to continue on for now and leave that as is. I'm not going to use the motor without it, but actually that's not on the carburetor body, that's just the throttle advance. So it moves the throttle on the carburetor, but also advances the timing, which is how these old two-strokes work. As you increase the throttle, the timing advances, so it's actually doing both. But I need that clip anyways, but I don't have it now, so we're just going to keep moving until I got it. So right now I'm going to kind of pretend that this is working, or on the boat and attached to the motor, and I got good clearance. I got no issues with that. And then again, should be able to cock it to the one side and carefully tilt all the way up. Perfect. It does put a little strain on that detent clip, and that's the only part of this whole system I'm a little bit worried about, is that detent clip is not very sturdy. So I may have to get another small piece of stainless steel with a hole in it and just sandwich that down real good. So far, not that this has gone easy, but it's going well. The other thing I got, take a look at, .3-foot threaded rod with quick disconnect ball joint ends. So that, actually, I'm not going to be using this clip portion. There's a spot on the main motor right there that this stud right here will actually just thread right into. And then when I need, or when I'm ready, it clips on. That'll attach it to the main. Same side over, same thing over here. We'll go, hopefully right in here. I'll put that stud through there and have a quick disconnect on that side too. So now that we have seen converting the tiller over to remote controls and mounting it on the pontoon, now it is time to move on to installing our remote controls. Alright, welcome to the inside. So I haven't exactly figured out where I want to mount this yet, but I know it needs to be over here somewhere. I don't want it to be interfering with the main motor controls. I don't want it to be too close to the main motor controls or in my way if I'm swiveling my chair. So I kind of just need to figure out, do I want it down low, up a little higher? Are we going to be using it that often? Maybe off to the side, but then again, that interferes possibly with swiveling my chair around. So that'll be my next step. Is off camera I'm just going to kind of play around, figure out where I'm going to want this mounted first. Our old cables are still mounted in the fiberglass helm here. For me, I think where I'm going to go is towards the ground, maybe an inch off that bottom rail, and about there, so that when it's in forward gear it's not going to hit that rail, and there's enough room when it's in neutral. There's enough hand room there, and it will set maybe an inch off the skin here because there's little spacers that go with the mounting hardware, so it'll come off maybe about like that, you know, have an inch on the back side, and I can reach that from my captain's chair. And I was able to get a little clip that's gonna hold the throttle cable on this little connection here. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to see if I can do this one-handed. I'm gonna go ahead and get the clip on off camera, and I'll show it to you once. I was able to get the little circles on this tab on the top and on the bottom, and I think that should just, yep, snaps on, and that holds the throttle cable on that little nub. So we are all set to go in here. They've provided in the instructions a nice template, so I'm going to determine exactly where I want it, and I'm going to tape it in place so that I can drill my holes. This is a 1/4 inch drill bit. We got 3 holes, one here, one here, one here. Next, I need to figure out where I want the cables to come up through. You need to have a nice kind of bend to them so that they're not kinked, and it's as gentle a slope as I can possibly get, so it's going to be back a little ways. All right, with my chair back into place, and that's kind of right where the controls are going to sit. I think if I just come back, you know, good foot, maybe 1.5 feet, 18 inches, something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of tape up here, go on the exterior side of the boat, and I want to just make sure that I'm not going to be drilling into a cross member or anything that could be bad to be drilling through. So I'm going to mark up here with a piece of tape. Down on the ground again, you can see where I marked my tape, and that's approximately where I want to drill through the floor. I'm going to follow that down, and we'll go underneath here and see. So we are not going to hit a cross member or anything, so I'm going to want to drill just inside the fencing on the inside of the boat, through here. And our cables currently are routed, because they're the cables that I used on the main controls. They are currently going up into the helm, so I'm going to pull them back through and then bring them back here. All right, I can't stress this enough. This is not a how-to. This is just a how I do. I am very well aware that I'm about to punch a hole in the deck of my boat and that will be irreparable. So take this step at your own risk. Not sure how a hole saw is going to do on the carpet. We'll see. I do have a cover that it'll actually have a cut in it, so I can put the cables in and then I can put the cover around. It'll cover up the hole and have like a little boot on it, so it'll be a little bit prettier. Worked out okay. Got it, one of them, out of that hole and pulled a couple of cross members back. And our hole that we drilled is actually one more. So I'm going to feed it up that hole that we just drilled. Okay, how'd it go? Got the second one. Okay, that's a lot better. I got it so that they are kind of coming from the back direction now, so I can feed these back through and make them a little shorter and not be too crazy with the bend that I put into them. So, kind of determine here which one is my shift. That one's probably throttle. There. Yeah, that's gonna be shift. Went ahead and got this mostly together. Sorry I didn't film it, but it just made it a little bit easier to have two hands and to really think about what I was doing. So I got the shift cable connected down here with a little cotter pin on it. The throttle cable connected here with a little cotter pin on it. And now what'll happen is that back plate cover, so the little drums go into the little circle there. This back plate cover is going to go back on. So now that I have that all put together, I'm going to go back. This is now in neutral and at idle. So I'm going to go to the kicker and adjust the linkages back there and make sure that they are holding an idle throttle and a neutral shift position, and adjust it if I need to. So if you remember when I put this together, there was a little drum and cotter pin that went through here, and of course I went and took the boat out on the lake, and that has now gotten lost. So I'm going to use just a bolt in its place to keep the shift linkage where I'm supposed to. Whoop, of course. Plan 2 is I'm going to use a bolt this is a tight squeeze. I just dropped it. Oh, it's so hot out. It's miserable. Okay, again, I'm going to use a bolt and a little nut, just for temporary. I'll get something a little better later, but that'll hold that in position. And then we'll go ahead and put this little retainer back in the shift lever, and we're in neutral. And you can see our drum is nowhere near, so we need to dial this back. Here. That even barely wants to. That's as far as it'll go. Okay, figured out what was going on. I had the shift and throttle cables completely backwards up in the controls. So I took it all apart again, switched them out, and now we're fitting good.